This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash Vossoughi and Mikey Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mikey Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash Vossoughi, and we're so thrilled to be back with you for another episode. Arash, how are you doing?
I'm great, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. You know, it has been about 2 weeks since your very first book launched officially, which is World Class Wealth Mindset. I'm holding a copy right here. And we have gotten such incredible feedback. Everyone is loving the book. So what I thought we could do today is actually do an episode around some concepts that you have in the book. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right. So if I just flip open to pretty much, actually, before I do that, in the foreword and in the description of the book, we mentioned that this is not a normal book. It is truly a guide. And one of the reasons is because the way the book is structured, right? There is the concept, and then there's an action step to go with every single concept, which really goes to your philosophy and the way that you teach and how no results happen without action. Will you talk about why we structured the book that way and how important you think action is before we even jump into the concepts within the book?
Yeah, I mean, action's everything. Without action, nothing is going to happen. And we structured it in a way that it is so applicable for anybody wherever they are. But the doing is where the magic happens. You know, I often think about success, and the key is in the beginning, the will to get things done. And really, I say this all the time, it's easier to behave your way into a new identity than it is to think your way into a new identity. So we've got to start getting in the habit of getting things done, acting on ideas right away. And the book is interesting because it's really 17 years of deconstructing what I've done to go from failure to succeeding. And along the way, there were so many lessons, so much implementation that I did and that I anchored in me that I've taught to hundreds of thousands of people now. So if anybody does it and does the work, they're going to see significant results.
Absolutely. All right. I've got this line highlighted, and so I want to have you talk on it. Everything you think and do or fail to think and do has an effect somewhere in your life. You know, you talk about the things you do in secret. The disciplines that you hold in secret are what you get paid for in public. Can you bring that a little bit deeper for us?
Well, if you look at success just from a neutral place, it's really in your preparation. It's what you're doing behind the scenes when nobody's watching. It is your processes that you're implementing, your belief installation process, number one, because until you believe it, nothing's going to happen. Nobody can believe it for you. And it's really about deliberate practice of what you're doing. Too many people are obsessed with the results. And we've got to become a master at controlling ourselves and stop letting the results dictate who we are, what we can do, what we're capable of. So the practice of what you're doing, what is that practice? That's practicing your craft. If you are a sales professional, you want to practice your presentation. But there is no good presentation without a great mindset, because selling is a mindset. You're transferring belief. They're buying your belief in your product or service more than they are buying the product or service. So it's really what you're doing in private. Are you chasing results? There was a time in my life I was chasing results. And I was always on a roller coaster going up and down, up and down. Some days would be good, some days would not. And when I discovered that's not a winning formula and stopped doing it is when my results started skyrocketing. So that's a process. You know, you get neutral with yourself and you say, I'm just going to focus on my goal achieving activities. I'm going to focus on thinking like my future self. It's very simple. But we've got to overcome the old you and the old me by not letting our old doubt, our old conditioning control what we're doing going forward. So if everybody's listening to this, all you have to do is you will know where your program is if you just watched your behaviors this week. If you just reflected on your behaviors, do they reflect the person who would achieve your big goal? Are you constantly letting somebody else upset you? Or are you letting a circumstance upset you? If the answer is yes, you're not fused with your goal. So we've got to understand how important it is to be one with our goal. Because without being one with it, nothing is going to change. And how do you become one with it? You, first of all, know exactly what you want. That's the first step. Number two, you are in the spirit of it. What is the spirit? You're in love with it. We've got to start looking at our goals differently. To be in love with it, you want to treat your goal like a love story where you're so in love with that goal. And then the minute you're in the spirit of the goal, you're in love with it and you accept it, you're fused with it. And now we want to do that every day. And that changes the game.
So good. Okay, no surprise here since it is your book, but you really led me to the next point pretty perfectly. There's an entire section in the book under the art of neutrality on page 36. And we get a lot of questions about this when we do Q&As, both publicly and from our elite clients, because they're thinking, okay, you told me to get emotionally involved with my goal. I'm obsessed with my goal. So how do I remain neutral? That seems counterintuitive or counterproductive, but it's not. We explain how it's not. You said too, like you can't chase it.
Mm-hmm. Let's use a relationship. I want everyone to think about a time they fell in love for the first time. You were so emotionally involved, but you were neutral too. You weren't attached. When you're in love, it just takes over. But neutral is not positive or negative. It's observing yourself from a third-party person where you're getting the truth. Like think of a scale of 1 to 10. When we're neutral, we're at 5. We're not positive, we're not negative. We just are. So you get to see things as they really are, and you're going to be able to see what can I course correct? Oh, this is what I'm doing really well right now, so I'm going to anchor it. I remember I was telling this story last week at our event. This is where everything really changed with me in awareness, because awareness is everything. When you have awareness, you never lose it. I was sitting down in a coffee shop. I always say a coffee shop. It was not a coffee shop. It was a hotel having coffee with my mentor. And he said to me, Arash, what are you studying right now? And I said, myself. And he said, tell me more. I said, I'm studying myself of how I'm implementing this philosophy. And he said, how are you doing it? I said, I'm just neutral. He said, tell me what neutral is, because Bob never talked in terms of neutral. And I said, I'm just observing myself like a third-party person. I'm getting so many answers. And how you get neutral is just ask great questions. Questions shape performance. Questions shape behavior. What are the good questions? Am I operating out of my program, or am I operating out of my future self? What else am I capable of? A lot of people are asking the how question. How am I going to do it? It's the wrong question. We want to ask the who. Who do I have to become? What can I do? What is the most important activity that I can act on? What can I do to get out of my comfort zone? So as I did this, I got neutral and I got so many answers. So many answers. Whenever I catch myself sending a double binding message, the only way I picked it up is because I was neutral. I said, oh, interesting. I've been coming too much from lack right now. I've got to shift that. See, when you're neutral, you're going to pick it up. If you're not neutral, if you're just reacting, you are just using such a small percentage of your potential. So neutral changes the game.
I love that. Arash, and we've done a couple of episodes now on self-image on the podcast. And there's obviously a chapter on self-image in the book because it's such an important topic as it relates to success, creating a world-class wealth mindset. And you talk about how you can never outperform your self-image. There's a line in the book that says the best way to raise your self-image is through action. Will you explain that?
Yeah, it's kind of like how we started. Action changes the game. When you do it, you have a visceral experience. You're in the doing. Emerson has a great quote. He says, do the thing will give you power. You have to make your move before you're ready. Too many people are getting ready to be getting ready. They're planning to plan. I'm going to do this when this happens. And when my life changed is when I just acted right away. Before I was ready. I didn't have the confidence, but I had the desire. So I just unconsciously knew I had to act. And when you act, even if you fail, you increase your identity because you were willing to fail in order to win. So identity is such an important thing because our identity is what creates our results. You will never outperform your identity. So if you look at your income right now, that's where your identity is conditioned. If you want more, you have to upgrade the identity. So how do you do it? You upgrade the beliefs. You give yourself a command. You say, this is what I'm doing no matter what, and you act on ideas. If you're sitting there right now saying, I know I have potential, and you're not doing it, you're not using that potential. And see, we've got to understand this. We have infinite potential inside of us. It is dying to come out, but it's not going to come out unless we have a significant idea of ourselves and an attitude of ourselves to let it out. We have to be willing to let it out. Too many people are thinking about what they're not instead of what they are. So wherever we put our energy is where our focus goes. So if we keep focusing on what we're not, we're going to constantly be living scared, shrinking all the time, giving excuses. And excuses, like observe your excuses. We just talked about being neutral. What is an excuse? It reflects our deepest fears. Then you look at the fear and you say, is it real? Like just ask that question, is it real? It'll change the game. Questions are so great. They shape beliefs, they shape performance, they shape identity, they shape attitude. It changes the game.
Arash, standard is a concept that I don't think anyone teaches as well as you do. And it's something that we obviously teach as a foundational concept of Us Coaching Co. It's in the name of our podcast. Also very heavily present in the book. And I'll never forget when we were at a World Class Wealth event in Scottsdale and we had a client say, I thought I had a standard, but it was a little squishy. And you were like, no, you didn't have a standard then because standard is not squishy. And we'll have clients say, yeah, I set my standard, but then I dropped it because of this circumstance, or I didn't keep my standard because of X, Y, or Z, whatever their reasoning may be. And you always say, then it wasn't a standard because standards don't drop. I would love for you to go into that.
Yeah, for me, standard is everything. Standard always wins. You'll know your standard because you still hold it in your weakest moment, when you're most tired, when you have adversity going against you, you never drop standard. Whenever somebody says, I dropped my standard, it was never a standard. It was, I can hold a high standard when I'm feeling good, when things are going well. But you want to measure it. It's a line in the sand. And you never drop it, no matter what's happening. When you operate with a standard, you bring everything up in your environment up to your standard. You'll attract the right clients. You'll attract the right team. You'll become a better leader. Standard is so important. I do corporate coaching all the time. The first thing I work with the leaders and whoever I coach corporate is tell me the standards of your company. I have them literally write out a standard and it becomes their code of ethics. And I say, this is the key though. You can't lead without you always operating with this standard. A lot of people are sabotaging themselves because they're letting the outside determine their standard. They're letting their spouse determine the standard. See, we can't be in a self-imposed prison. Everything is connected. So when you're operating on a high standard, you're going to attract what's on that frequency. Everything is energy. So this is why standard is so important. And we have a standard in everything we do. We have a standard in our income. Look at your income. We have a standard in how we deal with our emotions. Look at your emotions. Are you constantly up and down? We have a standard for discipline. We have a standard for our health. So you want to take a look at the standard.
Mm-hmm. Arash, one of my favorite chapters in the book is on attitude. And there's a paragraph and the header at the top says, your mindset must be stronger than your emotions. And that's something that you say pretty often. What does that mean?
Well, we want to look at our emotions. If you have good emotions, great. Keep riding the momentum. But if you have a bad emotion that comes in, what's a bad emotion? Fear. you've got to look at it in its eyes. And when your mindset is stronger, you say what I said earlier, is this real? And then you say to yourself, what is fear? Fear is an effect. So now you're using your reasoning faculty for you. So you're saying fear is an effect. What is the cause? It's doubt. What is doubt? Old conditioning. So now you're using your thinking through all your practice that you're doing every day to prepare yourself to become an elite performer. See, we've got to understand there's different types of performers. There is a poor performer. They want to do the least to get their needs met. There's an average performer. They really want more, but they're not willing to get out of their comfort zone. So they're a little above the poor performer. They really want to do good work, but they won't get out of their comfort zone. Then you have the high performer. The high performer is somebody who wants to be at their best, but they're still driven by the results. Then you have the world-class performer. The world-class performer, they not only want to be at their best, they see themselves at their best, and they're focused on serving. They're constantly focused on how they can bring other people up, how they can give the best service. And so when you look at all this, this is all attitude. See, everything is attitude. Success comes down to two very simple things: attitudes and habits. I say it all the time. If you want to look at your results, it's a reflection of your attitudes and habits. What is standard? It's an attitude. When you make standard a habit, see you later. You're off to the races. I mean, you are going to crush it. I promise you. And when you have a standard with attitude, with a strong attitude mixed in, whatever's happening, you say, no, I'm not accepting that. This is what I'm doing no matter what. You go to another gear. You bring that other person who knows how to do 10 times better than you. Here's the thing we all have to understand. We all can be doing so much better than we're doing right now. That's not because I'm saying, oh God, look at what's wrong. No, I'm telling you, we can do so much better. We have to start going after goals that are worthy of us and stop accepting lesser goals. We have to stop tolerating mediocrity. That is dropping everything in your life.
Raj, also in one of the parts of the attitude chapter that I love is on page 86 and 87. There's a money quiz, which helps you establish what your money mindset is. You also say in the book that our attitude towards money is not fixed or predetermined. We have the power to reshape our beliefs, our perceptions, opening ourselves up to a world of abundance and limitless possibilities. And I love that because you can always change your attitude. You can always change your mindset. We go a little bit deeper on this.
You know, money is no different than when we learn how to drive a car. Once you learn the rules of money, you'll never stop earning it. But most people don't understand the rules. But we have to have a great attitude towards money. Most people are making a god of money instead of focusing on how they can get better, how they can serve more. See, if you look at money, money is a direct reflection of the good you're putting out, but it's also what you feel worthy of. That's all money is. Money is not a cause, it's an effect. So when you go through this money quiz, you're going to find out where you are towards your attitude around money. But we've got to start focusing on getting better, on lifting our identity, on really serving at the highest level. And being a leader is a great one because we have to lead ourselves before we can lead others. I see people in companies, they're great leaders, but they're dragging their people. They're not leading them. They're not being transparent with them. And they're dragging them to the finish line, and it's exhausting. These people end up spending more hours in uninspired work because they keep dragging people than they do in inspired work where they can create better results. It's a much different energy. And so we've got to look at leverage too. One of the key rules about money is leverage. Now, let's look at this idea. If you don't have enough money to live the way you want to live, you're not going to live the way you want to live. We have to understand that. Money gives us choices to experience all the wonderful things in life. And that's all it is. But don't make a god of money. Heal your money wounds. If you're always in scarcity, that's because scarcity is your dominant conditioning. So you want to go on a 30-day test and only look for abundance in everything. You see a dog walking, abundance. It's in the little things that we can reprogram, not just in the materialistic things. A lot of people look at people who have great cars or a nice watch or a nice purse for women, and it doesn't even matter. What matters is you acknowledging the abundance around you. You're going to shift your attitude towards money.
So good. Arash, we just did an episode, I think it was 2 episodes ago, on motivation and how motivation will not get you there. I think you said on that episode, motivation can get you started, but discipline is what takes you to the finish line. Discipline is what achieves your goals. There is a chapter on discipline in the book. In the book, one of my favorite, probably top 5 lines that you have in the book is, if we don't discipline ourselves, the world will do it for us. The world will make a coward out of the undisciplined individual. We talk about that?
Well, nothing works without discipline. And first off, we've got to understand how important discipline is. If you don't prioritize it, you're not going to go very far. Discipline is the prequel to freedom. When you have discipline, you're going to take yourself to a completely new level. And discipline is in your thinking. This is why we have to get so great at accepting and rejecting ideas. That's where discipline comes in. You have something that is not in harmony with your goal, you've got to say a hard no. And I have worked with clients on the first thing I ever do with clients is I tell them, I want you to get a PhD in accepting and rejecting ideas. But we don't just accept and reject. We accept and reject with confidence. Nope, I am not accepting this. And then the ideas we accept, it may be out of our comfort zone, but my goal demands me to say yes to this. Like I have a rule that before I say no, I say yes to everything. Now, I may change the yes to a no within 20 seconds if it doesn't feel right, but I condition myself with discipline to say yes to any opportunity until it doesn't feel right. But discipline is going to take you to the finish line. Commitment gets you started. You've got to commit, but consistency takes you to the finish line. What is consistency? It's discipline. It's disciplining your thinking to think in a certain way, then you will act in a certain way. And that's why discipline is so important.
All right, Arash, we only made it through the first half of the book. So the book is split up into part 1 and part 2, and it kind of goes through different concepts and what the concept is. And then the second half of the book puts them into action. I just love the way this book is formatted. So much good. You did such an amazing job, Arash. And I want to encourage everybody, if you don't already, to get your copy of the book. You can get it on Amazon. World Class Wealth Mindset. But Arash, for now, will you give us an action step for the day?
Well, here's the thing we've got to understand. You have everything you need right now to live your dream, but we have to bring it out of us. We've got to bring it to the surface. And the key is holding the image of your goal no matter what. But you're not going to hold the image if you don't build an enormous picture of yourself. And you have to have a big picture of yourself. Most people's picture is based on what they're currently getting. So I would encourage you, before I get into the action steps, to understand when you build this picture and hold that image, it's going to be so easy to hold the idea of your goal. And then you want to get involved with repetition. You want to get emotionally involved with repetition, where you're in the spirit of the repetition. And every time you start doing it, it's going to be much easier to get fused with your goal by getting in the spirit of it. But when you do the repetition, you're planting that idea in your subconscious mind. And it gets fixed in there through the repetition of doing it over and over again. And it automatically gets expressed in your life as a habit. So what I would tell you right now, take an honest look at yourself. And I want you, if you're not going in the right direction, if you're plateauing, I want you to write out, even if you're crushing it, you can have a better image of yourself. Write out the exact picture of you, because you're not going to achieve the goal until you see yourself there. And write it out. It doesn't take long, but write it out exactly as the person you want to be in the present tense. as your future self, what are the activities your future self does? Who is the environment in your future self? What is the income you're enjoying at your future self? What type of experiences are you experiencing at your future self? And then you listen to it, you record it on your phone, you listen to it over and over and over again until you become it.
Perfect, Arash. Thank you so much. Today's episode was all about Arash's new book, The World-Class Wealth Mindset. If you already have a copy or when you order your copy, go ahead and send me an email, hello@vosscoachingco.com. And I'm going to send you a little PDF worksheet that we created to go along with the book that'll just take it a few notches higher for you. So send me an email. I'll send you that PDF to go along with the book. And as always, please share our podcast with your friends and family. Leave us a rating and a review, and we'll see you next week for another episode. Thanks, Arash.
Thanks, Mikey.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mikey and how Voss Coaching Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachingco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7-Figure Standard.